Welcome to Jersey Reads the Classics, an audiobook podcast delving into the finest works of our literary masters. Unfortunately, it's read by this woman.
What the hell? Who cares? Let's go on an adventure.
Hello, and welcome back to Jersey Reads the Classics with me, your house, Rosetta Candy. Well, my friends, we are moving and grooving right along in the book, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. So without any further ado, let's proceed to Chapter 5, The Rescue of the Tin Woodman. When Dorothy awoke, the sun was shining through the trees, and Toto had long been out chasing birds around him and squirrels. She sat up and looked around her. There was the Scarecrow, still standing patiently in the corner, waiting for her. God, is he like a stalker? I mean, I know he doesn't sleep, he doesn't eat, but whatever. We must go and search for water, she said to him. Why do you want water, he asked. To wash my face clean after the dust of the road, and to drink so the dry bread will not stick in my throat. This girl is so good with her hygiene. I love when kids have good hygiene. I've always been one of those kids that love to take baths and stuff. My brother Jordan, who was 4 years older than me, I think he was like 10 or 11, my mom would be like, Jordan, take a bath. He's like, no, I don't want to take a bath. She's like, get in the bath. But I've always been, and I'm really obsessed with teeth. I think I've mentioned that before. I'm all about cleaning up and hygiene. That's all I'm going to say. It's all, I mean, honestly, I'm obsessed with the teeth thing. You don't even want to go on that. Okay. It must be inconvenient to be made of flesh, said the Scarecrow thoughtfully. He's kind of got a point. For you must sleep and eat and drink. However, you have brains, and it is worth a lot of bother to be able to think properly. Too bad the Scarecrow doesn't realize not everybody who is made of flesh and blood has brains. But he doesn't know. But we do, don't we? Oh, we know. Once again, these are comments that you know what I'm alluding to. They left the cottage and walked through the trees until they found a little spring of clear water where Dorothy drank and bathed and ate her breakfast. She saw that there was not much bread left in the basket, and the girl was thankful the Scarecrow did not have to eat anything, for there was scarcely enough for herself and Toto for the day. When she had finished her meal and was about to go back to the road of yellow brick, she was startled to hear a deep groan nearby. What was that? She asked timidly. I cannot imagine, replied the Scarecrow, but we can go and see. Just then, another groan reached their ears, and the sound seemed to come from behind them. They turned and walked through the forest a few steps when Dorothy discovered something shining in a ray of sunshine that fell between the trees. She ran to the place and then stopped short with a little cry of surprise. One of the big trees had been partly chopped through, and standing beside it with an uplifted axe in his hand was a man made entirely of tin. His head and arms and legs were jointed upon his body, but he stood perfectly motionless, as if he could not stir at all. Dorothy looked at him in amazement, and so did the Scarecrow, while Toto barked sharply and made a snap at the tin legs, which hurt his teeth. That's what you get, you see, Toto? Toto could use some brains too, but he's not made of straw. Okay. Did you groan? Asked Dorothy. Yes, answered the Tin Man. I did. I've been groaning for more than a year, and no one has ever heard me before or come to help me. Jesus Christ, imagine being stuck for like a year and no one helping you. Oh my God, it's like being lost out in the woods. Oy vey. What can I do for you? She inquired softly, for she was moved by the sad voice in which the man spoke. Get an oil can and oil my joints, he answered. They are rusted so badly that I cannot move them at all. If I am well oiled, I shall soon be all right again. You will find an oil can on a shelf in my cottage. Dorothy at once ran back to the cottage and found the oil can, and then she returned and asked anxiously, where are your joints? Oil my neck first, replied the Tin Woodman. So she oiled it, and as it was quite badly rusted, the Scarecrow took hold of the tin head and moved it gently from side to side until it worked freely, and then the man could turn it himself. Now, oil the joints of my arms, he asked, and Dorothy oiled them, and the Scarecrow bent them carefully until they were quite free from rust and as good as new. The Tin Woodman gave a sigh of satisfaction and lowered his axe, which he leaned against the tree. This is a great comfort, he said. I have been holding that axe in the air ever since I rusted, and I'm glad to be able to put it down at last. Now, If you will oil the joints of my legs, I shall be all right once more. So they oiled his legs until he could move freely. And he thanked them again and again for his release, for he seemed a very polite creature and very grateful. Here we go again. They're both polite, the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman, and they're both grateful. Remember when the Scarecrow was very grateful too, a couple chapters ago? I might have stood there always if you had not come along, he said, so you have certainly saved my life. How did you happen to be here? We are on our way to the Emerald City to see the Great Oz, she answered, and we stopped at your cottage to pass the night. Why do you wish to see Oz, he asked. I want him to send me back to Kansas, and the Scarecrow wants him to put a few brains into his head, she replied. The Tin Woodman appeared to think deeply for a moment. Then he said, Do you suppose Oz could give me a heart? Why, I guess so, Dorothy answered. It would be as easy as to give the Scarecrow brains. True, the Tin Woodman returned. So, if you will allow me to join your party, I will also go to the Emerald City and ask Oz to help me. Come along, said the Scarecrow heartily. Heartily, you get it? And Dorothy added that she would be pleased to have his company. So, the Tin Woodman shouldered his axe, and they all passed through the forest until they came to the road that was paved with yellow brick. The Tin Woodman had asked Dorothy to put the oil can in her basket, for he said, if I should get caught in the rain and rust again, I would need the oil can badly. It was a bit of good luck to have their new comrade join the party, for soon after they had begun their journey again, they came to a place where the trees and branches grew so thick over the road that the travelers could not pass. But the Tin Woodman set to work with his axe and chopped so well that soon he cleared a passage for the entire party. Looky, 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 once again being provided for by the universe. That's all I'm going to say. But that's not all I'm going to say, because you know when the woo-woo comes, I'm going to be saying a lot more about that. But I'm just giving you something to think about. Dorothy was thinking so earnestly as they walked along that she did not notice when the Scarecrow stumbled into a hole and rolled over to the side of the road. Indeed, he was obliged to call to her to help him up again. Why didn't you walk around the hole? Asked the Tin Woodman. I don't know enough, replied the Scarecrow cheerfully. My head is stuffed with straw, you know, and that is why I'm going to Oz to ask him for some, brains. Oh, I see, said the Tin Woodman. But after all, brains are not the best things in the world. Have you any? Inquired the Scarecrow. No, my head is quite empty, answered the Woodman. But once I had brains and a heart also, so having tried them both, I should much rather have a heart. And why is that? Asked the Scarecrow. I will tell you my story, and then you will know. So while they were walking through the forest, the Tin Woodman told the following story. I was born the son of a woodman who chopped down trees in the forest and sold the wood for a living. When I grew up, I too became a wood chopper, and after my father died, I took care of my old mother as long as she lived. Oh, he was a good sonny boy. Look at him, sonny boy, taking care of his dad, his pappy and his mammy. And then it was like, they're both gone now. He's going to go live his life, hopefully. Then I made up my mind that instead of living alone, I would marry so that I might not become lonely. I wonder how old he was at this point. You know, when people get older, like myself, especially men, and they've never been married, sometimes they really set in their ways and they don't know how to compromise. But let's see what happens with the Tin Woodman. Hopefully he finds love. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. There was one of the Munchkin girls who was so beautiful that I soon grew to love her with all my heart. She, on her part, promised to marry me as soon as I could earn enough money to build a better house for her. So I set to work harder than ever. But the girl lived with an old woman who did not want her to marry anyone, for she was so lazy she wished the girl to remain with her and do the cooking and the housework. It sounds like Cinderella's mother. So the old woman went to the Wicked Witch of the East and promised her 2 sheep and a cow if she would prevent the marriage. Thereupon, the Wicked Witch enchanted my axe, and when I was chopping away at my best one day, for I was anxious to get the new house and my wife as soon as possible, the axe slipped all at once and cut off my left leg. This at first seemed a great misfortune, for I knew a one-legged man could not do very well as a wood chopper. You think? So I went to a tinsmith and had him make me a new leg out of tin. That was smart, okay. The leg worked very well once I was used to it, But my action angered the wicked witch of the east, for she had promised the old woman I should not marry that pretty munchkin girl. When I began chopping again, my axe slipped and cut off my right leg. My God. Again, I went to the tinsmith, and again he made me a leg out of tin. After this, the enchanted axe cut off my arms, one after the other, but nothing daunted. I had them replaced with tin ones. Now, I think that's great as being resourceful and stuff, but I have a question here. Is the girlfriend caring that he's got tin arms and tin legs? Because I would think her cuddling him or hugging him would be very cold, and it wouldn't be very warm to be hugging tin arms and tin legs. I'm just saying that. But he's not mentioning the girl right now. He's just talking about the fact that he's losing limbs left and right. Okay. The wicked witch then made the axe slip and cut off my head. And at first I thought that was the end of me. But the tinsmith happened to come along, and he made me a new head out of tin. Damn, talk about having the universe working for you. I thought I had beaten the wicked witch then, and I worked harder than ever. But I little knew how cruel my enemy could be. That's true, they can be. She thought of a new way to kill my love for the beautiful munchkin maiden, and made my axe slip again so that it cut right through my body, splitting me in two halves. Once more, the tinsmith came to my help and made me a body of tin, fastening my tin arms and legs and head to it by means of joints, so that I could move around as well as ever. Once again, has he gone to the maiden and visited her? Would she want a man made of tin? That's my question. I understand he's dealing with a lot of drama and trauma right now, but he's not mentioning that the munchkin girl, does she even want him? I mean, that's my question. I mean, maybe she's just like, I don't want your ass now. I can't hug you. What's the point? And we're going to have little tin children? How? Anyway. But alas, I had now no heart, so that I lost all my love for the munchkin girl and did not care whether I married her or not. I suppose she's still living with the old woman, waiting for me to come after her. Do you really think she's waiting for you? I mean, maybe she's not getting married, but it seems like you ghosted her, dude. So at this point, you couldn't send a text. We know that. Couldn't send a message to be like, bitch, I'm a tin man. But I don't care. But he said he lost his heart. So let's see what happens. My body shone so brightly in the sun that I felt very proud of it. And it did not matter now if my axe slipped, for it could not cut me. There was only one danger, that my joints would rust. But I kept an oil can in my cottage and took care to oil myself whenever I needed it. However, there came a day when I forgot to do this, and being caught in a rainstorm, before I thought of the danger, my joints had rusted, and I was left to stand in the woods until you came to help me. It was a terrible thing to undergo, but during the year I stood there, I had time to think that the greatest loss I had known was the loss of my heart. While I was in love, I was the happiest man on earth. But no one can love who has no heart, and so I am resolved to ask Oz to give me one. If he does, I will go back to the Munchkin Maiden and marry her. Once again, my question is she really still waiting for him? I mean, you ghosted her ass. I'd hope she moved on. But Dorothy and the Scarecrow had been greatly interested in the story of the Tin Woodman, and now they knew why he was so anxious to get a new heart. All the same, said the Scarecrow, I shall ask for brains instead of a heart, for a fool would not know what to do with a heart if he had one. I shall take the heart, returned the Tin Woodman, for brains do not make one happy, and happiness is the best thing in the world. Dorothy did not say anything, for she was puzzled to know which of her two friends was right. This is a hard decision, I have to give it to Dorothy. And she decided if she would only get back to Kansas and Aunt Em, it did not matter so much whether the Woodman had no brains and the Scarecrow no heart, or each got what he wanted. Well, look at Dorothy being a selfish little bitch right now. She's like, screw both of your asses. I just want to get home to Auntie Em. You notice how she didn't mention Uncle Henry because he's a sourpuss. She didn't mention him. Did you notice that? I noticed that. Things don't go unnoticed when you read a book out loud. Let me tell you something. It really does resonate. That's why whatever you want, speak out to the universe, because it resonates and you do get what you want or choose to get, whatever. What worried her most was that the bread was nearly gone, and another meal for herself and Toto would empty the basket. To be sure, neither the Woodman nor the Scarecrow ever ate anything, but she was not made of tin nor straw and could not live unless she was fed. Well, there we go again. We've got the Woodman and the Scarecrow thinking, relaying stories, being kind and all this, and Dorothy, her human self, is worried about her own damn needs. Her freaking hungry stomach. I know she's a kid, but isn't it just like humans? We just sit there and think about our own problems, and we wallow in our own shit when people are unveiling their own crap to us. But I digress. Anyway, well, I think it's interesting because here we've got the battle of brains, your mind, versus your heart, right? Spirit. And I love that the Tin Woodman had been a human and he had all these emotions and he had both. And the fact is, he's choosing his heart over his brains, which is basically, here we go, woo-woo time, your mind, your ego, your heart, spirit, ego, spirit. So he's deciding that for him, his heart equals spirit is more important. So his heart is what he loves most. So what I'm encouraging right now to think about, what's your heart's desire? What's in your heart? What do you love most? What is the thing that brings you joy, right? And that's, anything that ignites a fire or passion in you, whether it's a person, place, thing, I don't know, a situation, a job, whatever. And the point is how he said, I've had both, but I'm going with the heart because the heart makes me happy. So following your heart's desires leads to happiness. Now, with this being said, we're going to talk really briefly about, maybe not so briefly, ego and spirit, how important they both are. But the problem is, too many people live in an egoic way, meaning everything is about how they look, what they can accomplish, material stuff, and that's what our world's been like from the beginning of time, right? But then we have the spiritual aspect of ourselves. If we're not tapping into it, all we do is we stay in a place of our mind, we roll things over, and everything we do is driven by ego. It's not driven by a place of love and passion and what have you. However, when you get in touch with your spirit and you allow yourself to tap into spirit through meditation or whatever you need to do, or you're just listening to your heart's desires and saying, fuck it, I'm going for it because this is what fuels me, you have the balance. Now, ego is important, even though being too much in the ego is unhealthy. It's just that when you are ruled more by spirit and the things that drive you, right, your heart's desires, your passion, the things that make you feel inherently really great. Because remember, the ego can play tricks on you. It fucks your shit up. It tells you things you can do and can't do. It also actually tells you a lot of things you can't do. That's your ego. And it's also there to protect you, because when there's trauma in your life from childhood or what have you, and I've had trauma in my life, and it protects you by you forgetting stuff and you having coping mechanisms to deal with that trauma. But what happens if you do not unearth whatever trauma that is, or figure out that your ego is doing, like you have these certain coping mechanisms that you continue to do that no longer serve you, but they served you 30, 40 years ago, even 10 years ago, because you had a certain trauma, that's when problems arise and you keep doing the same patterns. We're not even going to get on that because that's a whole nother bowl of wax to go into. But the ego does serve a purpose. However, when you're too much into it, you're not living your true destiny, your true desires, and all of a sudden you get so clouded and you get so obsessed with everything around you that your happiness now depends on everything external. Like, if I only have that job, if I only have that girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, that money, that car, and all that, and instead of finding the peace and the calm and serenity and happiness within, you're looking outside of yourself. However, when you find the inner peace and calm within, and you're led by spirit saying, I'm going to follow my heart's desires no matter what, and release the fear of crap from my ego and just use my ego to motivate me, then you find this inner peace and calm and happiness because you're following your heart's desires. Now, ego is there to motivate you. Now, if we all sat around like Buddha and was like sitting under a tree going, Om Shanti Shanti, and had no ego, we'd all just be sitting under a tree doing nothing. Right? We'd be all happy and content, but none of us would be getting anything done. We'd just be like, yeah, and there'd be no yeah, and we'd just be like, okay. But ego is there to help push you. So what I like to say is, you're a bus, right? You're a car. What's really fueling you, the engine, is your spirit. But the ego is the little push and the boost from behind. It's like a train, right? Isn't it the caboose, the end? It's there to push. And that's how I think if you can live a life where you're led by spirit, your heart, and then you use your mind, your ego, to feed it and follow your heart without fear, worry, and doubt and lack, that's how you find happiness. Because happiness comes from within. Now, we're not talking about when you're in depression. I've talked about this. I'm very honest about it. I've been in dark depressions before due to health reasons and what have you. So I don't want to say, oh, just think happy thoughts and you'll be fine. No, 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 no. That's not what I'm talking about. We're just talking on a very, on a level of daily basis if you're not dealing with the dark depression, okay? That's something that dark depression and stuff like that, I believe in therapy, if you need medication and what have you. I'm not talking about that, but what I'm talking about is getting through each day and seeing what fuels me. So I just want to encourage you to think about what does fuel your heart. What is something you're really passionate about, and why aren't you doing something about it? Or are you in an egoic frame of mind where your identity is, you identify yourself with your job, your money, your house, your car, the external things. And now, like especially now that we're going through this terrible situation with the pandemic and what have you, a lot of people are having a reckoning of, oh shit, they don't want to stay at home. I mean, it's been a long time, but we have to, I would just encourage you to think about, what are you identifying your happiness and your self-worth with? Is it stuff that's external, or is it the stuff that's internal? And when you can start looking at the stuff that's internal, right? Finding that inner peace, calm, and serenity, you will realize that the loss of that car or that big house or what have you doesn't affect who you are or your worth or your enoughness or your happiness. So I think it's really important for all of us to find the balance. Yes, I think we need to have ego, and I will reiterate that, but we also really need to get in touch with our heart's desires, because when we come from a place of our heart, that's truly the internal. And when it comes from the mind, you are programmed from so many things that you have been told, you've seen. So this mind is not coming from like a place of enoughness and worthiness. Now, your mind is useful in the sense of it helps you discern things. So we need the brain and the heart. But if you can find that balance to, use them together. So follow your heart's desires, but then use your mind to come up with a game plan. We've talked about this on how you're going to do that. Or discern right now, what are the things I'm valuing that no longer serve me, that are all external. And that's why right now, right here, I can't find this inner peace and calm and happiness, because I'm looking so much outside of myself instead of going within. That's the point. You take the both and you balance. And I would just say this is a time to do it. The world is changing. The collective consciousness is changing. People are rising up. People are doing this work. People have been doing this work since the beginning of time. It's not like I'm spewing anything that's like, oh my God, I'm not magical. I'm not some Buddha. I'm not a guru. I'm just this chick who's done a lot of work on herself and continues to do a lot of work on myself, and feel inspired to share whatever I feel has helped me, and feel inspired just to talk about shit. Because at the end of the day, whether one person listens or no people listen, it's still helping me too. It's reinforcing what I need to remember. So with that being said, God, do I go on tangents? Just going to encourage you to think about where you place your values, and if it's more of an egoic thing than more than the heart, just encourage you to start thinking more with your heart and put down the things that really drive you and makes your heart happy. Your family members, your friends, your situations, the internal stuff that's going on, the small things, instead of focusing on the external. Because once again, we are all getting we've all been blinded by the external of life, of money, fame, all the riches and shit. And at the end of the day, most of those people are not happy. I'm not saying all of them aren't. It doesn't mean like once you have tons of money, you're not happy. But to look at those things and think that once I have this, once I have that, I'll be happy. That's not how it works. The happiness begins now, and the happiness is going with your heart. So that's what I'm going to say about that. That's all I got to say about that. I love how I say that's all I got to say about that, but then I can just pontificate and go off on a diatribe for 10, 15 minutes. You believe that? I mean, this chick likes to talk. I like to talk. But anyway, my friends, please find that inner peace, calm, serenity. And you're probably saying to me, Rosie, what do I need to do that? Well, meditation. If meditation doesn't work for you, there are many types of meditation. You can do guided. There are all free stuff things. You guys know, you Google that shit. There's free YouTube meditations. Deepak Chopra and Oprah give away like 21-day meditations 4 or 5 times a year for free. Or you can purchase them and they're guided with music and everything. Or you can do a music meditation. You know what? Make a playlist of 30 minutes of stuff that gets you in a place of quietude and trust. Or a walking meditation, just walking gets you in a place. Or reading a good book, just getting coloring. I started coloring during this quarantine. Has been very meditative for me because I'm focusing on something. I'm not in my brain. I'm hula hooping because it's a meditative flow of my hips back and forth, and I can just be in a zone. So find the things. I mean, of course, exercise, that gets hormones going, but if you find like on a run, that's a running meditation. You know, utilize the things that bring you joy while you're doing it and find the calm and peace. And you know, I do think there are many, I mean, you could be knitting. There are so many things that you could do. So I'm going to encourage you to explore things that can help you get into a place of calm and peace. Something you can do that's not huge. Like, you don't need to spend thousands of dollars to do knitting or to do coloring or to hula hoop or to jump rope. Find something that gets you in a zone where you just can focus and just not focus on my results. I need the results. No. Something that you're not concerned about the results. You're just letting everything fly away, and you're just staying in a place of openness to receive. Wow, see, I went off on another tangent. So anyway, my friends, I think you got what I'm talking about. Anyway, I'm hoping you have a great day. Hope you enjoyed this short chapter. They are short chapters, I realize that, but they do pack a punch. I seem to not have a loss for words or lessons, right? Anyway, you stay beautiful, you stay blessed, and until we meet again. Until we meet again. Bye. Peace.